Hello! Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about how to prioritize your mental health in winter. This is a topic near and dear to my heart because last winter was terrible for me and I am trying my best to be very intentional this year and make sure I actually enjoy this season. On my channel we talk all things mindset, habits and mental health, so if that sounds good to you and you enjoy this video, please subscribe. First off, it's really difficult when it's so gloomy in the evenings. I thought I was someone who loved winter and loved the dark. It turns out maybe I just was a child and enjoyed Christmas. I've been trying to like make my room a bit of a sanctuary. You can see here I've got my record player, which I set up finally in August. I did a whole video about that, so you can watch that if you would like. Trying to like lean into like more homey vibes. So I've got my records down here. I've got some poetry books up there. I'm just trying to enjoy this season and like settle in. I've got my fairy lights and candles. I like putting them on as well. I saw this thing yesterday actually that kind of called me out, or it just made me think a bit. It was saying you need to make sure you're actually feeling your feelings and not intellectualizing them. It was talking about self-awareness and how self-awareness, we can think that that's a good thing and like, oh, I don't need therapy, I'm self-aware, or like, I know what's going on with my emotions or with my thoughts, you know, I'm self-aware. But actually, through the self-awareness, you're bypassing the process of just like sitting with and feeling your emotions. I don't know if that's what I do. It made me stop for a second, but we don't have to absorb everything, right? Just because someone says something, even if we resonate with a part of it, that doesn't have to like become part of our story that we tell ourselves or whatever. There's a song on Dua Lipa's album Radical Optimism called Happy For You. The same thing happened when I first heard those lyrics. The lyrics are, I must have loved you more than I ever knew because I'm happy for you. And I was then like, oh, maybe the right reaction is to not be indifferent, but to be like, to have actually a positive reaction. But to me, I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think maybe to have like that detachment is a good thing. Like I don't have to absorb everything I hear or to think like, oh yes, this must apply to me. Especially I guess if it's something like from a song, because you know, that's like a piece of art, right? Like it may not even be true. Like we can think like, oh, these lyrics are so confessional and real and maybe this is really what like Taylor Swift thinks and that's like her style of songwriting, but it can just be communicating a feeling through a piece of art, like through music. But along those lines of like getting absorbed in something, I mentioned my record player. I'm noticing, and I think maybe you can apply this too, is to be really aware of and intentional about what music you choose to listen to. Because I love music, I have my records, I listen to a lot of music on my phone, it makes me really happy. But music can affect my mood, it can affect our mood more than we know. So just in this winter season, make sure you're putting on songs that are going to give you a boost as opposed to like draw you more into that reflective side, because it's really great to be reflective and think about things, but I certainly do not need to do any more of that. Like I do enough of that and it's already bad, so I don't need to add to that by listening to a reflective song. I'm thinking specifically of the song Rich Spirit by Kendrick Lamar, because I've been listening to a lot of his music honestly throughout the summer, but he recently, a couple Fridays ago, released a new album, like completely out of the blue. So I've been listening to a lot of his music. That song and the music video of that song, I don't even have the words to describe, but it's like true art. Both the music and the visuals in the music video are working together to portray a feeling that I don't even know how to describe. And I was looking through the comments and there were some people who were articulating what this feeling is. It's sort of like a mix of like loneliness, but also being happy being alone, or like what the kind of person we are when we're alone, or like being comfortable but also like feeling alone, or like wanting connection but also like fighting against the world. Like there's so many different things. And so I was like, wow, that is amazing. But I was listening to that song on repeat, and I have been, it's probably in my most listened. It's in my top 5. The other day I was just sat here and I was listening to music. I was getting all of these very reflective thoughts and like feeling sad or feeling alone. And then I was like, pause, wait, what have we been listening to? And it was that song on repeat. And that's fine, but it was making me more sad. And I think just being aware of the music you're listening to. I used to think that you would put sad music on deliberately to make yourself sad, right? Like people would be like, oh, don't put on sad music if you're feeling sad. Like don't wallow. That would be the thing, right? But I'm sure I did do that, but I don't do that anymore because I know it doesn't help me. Unless it is to put on a song that is going to help me be reflective and to process and sit with a feeling, as opposed to just like trying to paper it over with a happy song or just try and ignore the feeling. Like it is sometimes helpful to have these moments of quiet reflection, but I didn't realize that it would be happening without me thinking, like not wallowing, but just I would be sat here listening to a song and it would be gradually affecting my mood. And maybe that's not what was happening when I was listening to this song, Rich Spirit. Maybe that's not what was happening. Maybe this is just a very reflective season anyway, because it gets so dark so early. I'm like, how's the day almost nearly over and it's only 3 o'clock? The sun is already setting. As much as I love that song and have listened to it on repeat, you know, I was editing a video yesterday and that song was on for probably like an hour and a half as I was editing. I do love it. I can't describe the feeling, but I love the feeling that it gives me of reassurance or just expressing something that I don't know how to express. It's like cathartic to have that expressed through a song. But as much as I like that, it's detrimental to my mental health if I just keep engaging with that. So I've started just like randomly picking out a record and putting that on and then noticing my reaction to it. So like you can see this one here, I was listening to this yesterday. This is Scaled and Icy by 21 Pilots. And there are some quite sad songs on here, or like there are sad lyrics but upbeat sounding songs, which is like classic 21 Pilots. But this was like their most poppy album. As much as some of the songs when you actually properly listen to them are quite sad, it's still like this upbeat, feel good record. This is a good choice and I liked the way I felt after I'd listened to this. But there would probably be some others that I put on and I'd be like, no, this is really sad or really reflective. But maybe this is something that you can become aware of if you, like me, love music and basically have something on all the time, or most of the time. I do also like listening to podcasts. Or sometimes I think it's good to sit in silence as well. Don't put something on and then just move on from it. Afterwards sit and be like, okay, did this help me? Like, how did this affect my mood or my emotions, even imperceptibly? Because that's where the danger is, I guess, is something so small that we don't pay attention to it and then it creeps up on us and before we know we're like feeling really paralyzed with self-loathing or with just like I'm useless, I'm pathetic. Like things can get very big just through a series of smaller steps or smaller choices that we weren't necessarily even aware were gonna have that cumulative effect. And this is not to be like scary or like, oh my gosh, but it's just, this is what I'm noticing has helped me. And especially because I had quite a terrible time last December. I think the next thing, sorry if this video is going to be incredibly long, but I feel like that's the kind of topic that it is. The next thing is I want to be really intentional about celebrating Christmas and getting into the Christmas spirit and not just like waiting for myself to feel Christmassy, but like trying to be more Christmassy. If we're struggling with different things, whether it's like family or our jobs or just our mental health like we're talking about, if we're struggling with that, it can be really easy to be, at least for me, like dismissive of Christmas, and it can be quite a difficult time. I'm reflecting on like how unwell I was 3 years ago. It was really terrible. It can be a difficult time of year, but I also know for me, if I do try and engage in that Christmas spirit, it does help me. I can't just wait for that to arrive spontaneously. I need to start putting on Christmas music or switch out my flowers for my Christmas flowers, or I want to start wrapping my Christmas presents and be intentional about it. Maybe go like to some different shops which I know will have like a Christmas section or, you know, loads of Christmas stuff and just wander around and try and like absorb some festive spirit. I think the theme so far that we're getting is to be intentional and to be more aware of where your feelings are, where your mind is going. I think another key part is to, if you are feeling sad, just let yourself feel sad. We talked about how being self-aware might mean that you're intellectualizing your feelings as opposed to feeling them. If that quote speaks to you, it might be a sign that you're doing that, but it might also be the sign that you're like prone to overthinking things. Now you're going to be like, oh my gosh, am I feeling a feeling or am I intellectualizing it? Which is not helpful. To take things at face value, not without interrogating them or without, you know, just being like, oh yes, I'm feeling this way. Because sometimes I can have a thought that doesn't actually match up with the way that I'm feeling. So it's not about like just accepting every thought that goes through your head, but just being like, maybe you are just feeling sad, like maybe there's no deeper reason, maybe you are just feeling low, or maybe the reason is that it's getting dark so early, you know, or that it's so gloomy and we've not had sunlight for however long. We don't have to overcomplicate it. And I was thinking about this in terms of this quote that I heard. I've been rewatching Elementary. I love it so much. If you didn't know, it's a Sherlock Holmes TV show iteration, and I've realized I love so many of these. Like House MD, that's also a Sherlock Holmes iteration, right? His name is House Holmes, he lives at 221B. The format is like a medical drama, medical mystery, but I've been rewatching Elementary, which has been an interesting experience because I first watched it when my addiction was really bad. And now I'm over 2 years sober, so it's quite strange revisiting something that I watched when I was so unwell versus now when I'm better. I don't know if you know, if you've read the books you will know, I have read the books, but Sherlock Holmes is a drug addict. It is this ongoing subplot. And so we'll talk about like going to a meeting or like getting his 1 year chip or whatever. And so that is also resonating with me in a new way, because before I'd never been to a meeting or no chips or anything. And now I'm watching it like, oh wow, my life has changed so much. It's a weird feeling. But there was this quote, I wrote it down, but I think I can remember it, of the scene. I literally filmed the whole scene. It was like a 3-minute scene. I'm not gonna obviously play it because I can't, and I can't remember what episode it was from. I'll put it on the screen if you've watched Elementary and you want to see the specific episode. It bothered me that it stuck out to me, but I was also, if we're talking about taking things at face value and just being like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm sad, and not overcomplicating it or trying to like rationalize it, maybe that is, you know, that's what's been helping me deal with the feelings that this quote brought up. The quote was, "My sobriety is simply a grind. A leaky faucet which requires constant maintenance and in return offers only not to drip." I know that feeling so well. It's like sometimes you put in so much effort into this thing and it feels like you don't get anything in return. And it's not true, because I know, you know, I have my health. I woke up today and I don't feel sick. I can eat properly, I'm there for my family, I'm present, I'm like able to remember everything, my memory is so much better, like in every way. It's not, the only thing that I get in return is not that this faucet doesn't drip, but it's more just like the constant maintenance of it. And I can fall into that mindset of, it's not necessarily self-pity, but it's like, yeah, feeling like it's a grind and feeling like it's something that you have to pay so much attention to or put so much effort into sometimes, and it's just like, it gives you hardly anything in return. I heard that quote and the fact that it resonated with me set off alarm bells, because I was like, wait, this is not a good headspace to be in, to be like, my sobriety is simply a grind. You know, that's quite an ungrateful mindset to have. But then I'm like, it's not, it's difficult when talking about something like this, but it's like, it's not that deep. Like, maybe I do sometimes feel, not resentful because that would be very bad, but like, maybe I do sometimes feel annoyed that this is something that I have to manage, that a lot of other people don't even have to think about. Like, maybe that's a normal thing. And I can hear that, or I can watch this scene and be like, oh my gosh, I relate so much to the feelings being portrayed by these characters in this scene. I relate so much to that, but I don't have to like attach myself to it and be like, yes, I agree with that, I endorse that, or like, that's exactly me. It's like, yeah, that has been me, but that's not me now necessarily. It's the same thing as we were talking about with the self-aware thing, or even the Dua Lipa lyrics, like hearing, I'm happy for you, I must, like absorbing a message just because we hear it and resonate with it. That doesn't have to be our current reality. It's just giving space for all the feelings, I guess. Being like, yes, I really relate to this quote. Yes, it concerns me that I do relate to it so much. Does that mean that I have a problem brewing? You know, there's trouble if I relate to it so much. I'm not sure. I think maybe it's normal. I'm not sure about that either. No, I think the fact that it's even in it, like obviously his character has been written by someone who understands addiction. So the fact that someone else is feeling it, you know, I'm like, yeah, I guess it is a normal thing. And you can think it without it actually being true, right? Like I can think, oh, it's so annoying, while simultaneously being like, but I'm so grateful. You know, I guess maybe I'm worried that if I moved into that headspace of my sobriety is simply a grind, a leaky faucet which requires constant maintenance and in return offers only not to drip, I don't want to ever get to that point again where I'm feeling that heaviness, because that will be pretty bad, I think. I don't know. I only just can take it one moment at a time, right? But the fact it spoke to me was a bit, I don't know. I don't want to attach more meaning to it than is necessary. But this is why it's so important to prioritize my mental health in the winter, because all of these things grow so much more. I don't know if it's to do with, because it gets dark so early, that there is more space for thinking. It feels like there's more space for thinking because the day's not as long, and it's not like you can not do things, but it's just because it gets dark, it feels like you can't. Whereas in summer, if the sun is setting at 10 in the summer, then it just, there feels like more possibility. Even if you're just staying inside all day, or you're just staying at home all day, it feels different than like oppressive darkness. Remembering it is all a cycle and things are constantly changing, that can be helpful. The same way as looking at the stars I find to be helpful. You know, it's something like bigger than you. Same as nature, the seasons changing. We have no control over it. It's something bigger than us that carries on, quite relentless, which is difficult. Like change I find quite difficult, but there is also something comforting in it, in that it's like, however bad this feels now, there is always the possibility that it will change, right? And we can actually do things as well. to bring about that change. I think as well, getting the basics right in this season is really important. So focusing on like meal prep, like I'm trying to always have some vegetables that I can grab to put in a salad or on the side of like a sandwich or whatever. Always have something prepared that is, I know, nutritious, that has lots of like minerals in it and vitamins and just goodness, you know, as opposed to feeling like I'm just gonna grab a cheese sandwich, which there is nothing wrong with it, but I really want to be, again, intentional about the ways that I'm choosing to support myself in this season, because it can be difficult. Even if it's just like the placebo effect of making yourself some beans. Like I love Alison Roman's brothy beans recipe. I will link the video to it in the description. It is so good and so easy to make. Even if it's just a placebo effect of making something and knowing you put in some effort, making yourself some nourishing food and knowing that it's good for you, I think that's still valuable. But also they do talk about the gut as a second brain. What we eat does have an effect on our mood. And so whether it's placebo effect of knowing, oh, this has lots of vitamin A or this has lots of magnesium, zinc, whatever, or if it actually does, you eat this thing and it actually does help you feel better. Either way, it's a win. So it's a good idea to prioritize prepping healthy meals, things that you enjoy as well. Because I've been thinking about, this is kind of like going to be another video, but I've been thinking about, I want to look different and I would like to lose weight, but I'm like, is that realistic? Will that happen? I've read books and, you know, read stuff that's like, anything you lose, you'll put back on. Like, there's kind of no point in trying. And I'm like, okay, I get the message is supposed to be positive. Like, you know, just accept yourself, but like, maybe it's because I make YouTube videos, but like I spend a lot of time looking at my own face and I kind of deal with that by viewing the person on screen as different to me, which makes sense because right now I'm looking around my room and I'm seeing that, whereas the camera is looking at me and seeing me. So like I can't have that perspective of myself because the way I view the world is like this, whereas everyone else is looking at me like this, if that makes sense. So I view, when I'm editing, I'm like, that's not me. Like it is me, but you know, that I have to like have some separation. But even so, I look at it sometimes and I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that my face looks or whatever. And I guess some of that is normal to, you know, pick things apart, especially if you are doing something like video editing and staring at your face for however long. But I'm like, I would be able to lose weight while still eating things that I enjoy, right? And in general, I mean, in terms of like nourishment and like eating food that is gonna fuel your body or be good for your mood or whatever, like we talked about, it doesn't have to be like, I must eat this plain plate of vegetables with no dressing and no flavour, like this plate of steamed broccoli with some potatoes. Like, it doesn't have to be something boring. Like, you can make it joyful and like something that you actually like. I don't know, it's that thing of people will be like, you can't only wear your favourite clothes, because if you only wear your favourites, then some of them must not be your favourites, or like you can't only eat your favourite foods. And I'm like, no, it's just about like not forcing ourselves to do things we don't like. So don't force yourself to eat broccoli if you don't like broccoli. But equally, there could be a way that you prepare broccoli, which you've not tried yet, which you actually like. So have you tried making broccoli soup? Have you tried steaming it and then adding like some parmesan on top? Have you tried roasting broccoli and then adding like flaky sea salt on top, right? Like, there will be a way of preparing something that is better than just like, here is a stalk of boiled broccoli. Like, but also, like, cooking itself, I find the process to be really meditative. I will often fry up like a whole bunch of vegetables, like an onion, a pepper, tomatoes, courgette, and so it's repetitive chopping. I'm like chopping these things into small pieces, and there's something really meditative about it and really therapeutic. So prioritizing that in the winter is also, I think, really going to help me, and will hopefully help you too if you feel the same way. I know some people hate cooking, but I really enjoy it, and I like putting on a TV show in the background, maybe having a podcast going, music. I mentioned Kendrick Lamar's album. I've had that going, and that's, I don't know, 40 minutes, and I'll have that going in my headphones while I'm preparing whatever food, and I'm like, oh, I've listened to that album once. You know, I've been here for 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like being like in this little bubble of time where you're just like listening to music that you love, preparing food, and just being very present. Make some stews, make the beans, the brothy beans that we talked about, or like buy soup from the supermarket already made, or like buy tins of soup, right? Like, if you don't like cooking, you can still buy like nourishing things. You don't have to make them from scratch. You're still gonna get like loads of the benefits. The other thing I wanted to talk about is movement, because this is something that I suspect you have also realised helps your mood, but it's also, I think, going to get more difficult as it gets colder. It's actually not that cold recently 7 degrees now. I know I'm wearing a scarf, I kind of don't need it, but it's not really because I'm cold, it's more just like for the look of it and it's cozy. When it's colder, it's then feels more of a chore to like go for a walk. Whereas now I'm like quite happy to go outside. I know it will help me, and focusing more on the mental health benefits of movement in general helps me more than being like, oh, but this is good for your figure or whatever. I'm like, for whatever reason, that just doesn't motivate me in the same way, or I feel like then I'm only attaching exercise to the way I look, which is not helpful. I want it to be like a thing that's more attached to like self-love as opposed to just a surface thing or appearances. So going for a walk every day in the morning, even in the dark. It will now be time for Christmas walks. I mentioned this in my first ever Little Things episode last year. I started that series last year, and one of the little things I mentioned is Christmas walks. So this is just going around your neighborhood. Me and my sister would do this. You go around your neighborhood and you look at all of the lights, because hopefully where you live, people will have put up lights outside their houses, or you can see their Christmas tree in the window, and you just go around and you see all of the lights and you appreciate it. It's such a small thing, but it makes a walk more enjoyable and has more of a purpose, and it's also really fun and gets you in the Christmas spirit. We talked about that earlier. I am looking forward to doing that, but otherwise, yeah, when it's cold, I'm like, do I have to go outside? But it's like, yes, it's good, it's good. Or you could set like a timer every hour and try and do 500 steps. So just, I find it's 100 steps a minute, 5 minutes would be 500 steps. Walk around your house, like walk aimlessly, put a podcast on, an audiobook on, some music, right? Like anything to just keep moving. I also find dancing really helpful. I know this might sound really silly, but just put on some of your favourite music really loud. I find it better to do like really upbeat songs, and then you can like jump around. Just dance for 10 minutes or like 20 minutes. Don't even try and put a timer on it. Just be like, I'm gonna put on one of my favourite playlists, like a pop playlist or like a really upbeat playlist, whatever. Put that on and just move around. Even if I don't feel like it, once I have done that, my mood is so much better. Like that is one of the biggest hacks on this list that we're going through is dancing. If you're going to take one thing away, like yes, they are all helpful, and you know they all have their own benefits, and walking I think is really great, but the beauty of doing the dancing thing is you can literally just shut your curtains, and because it's dark from like 4, you don't have to like put on your scarf and your coat and your gloves, you don't have to put on your shoes. You can literally just be like, I'm in my pajamas, but I'm just going to dance around my room for 5 minutes, and it's really fun and silly and carefree. So highly recommend that. I also want to mention journaling. I've got my journal here. This is actually my scripting journal, but I've been just writing like affirmations and stuff in here as well. Journaling is really helpful and will help you to process some of the emotions, or like bring things up that you can then dwell on and think about. Because like we talked about, we don't want to be like rationalizing or intellectualizing. We want to actually be feeling, and journaling can really help you do that. Just do a simple gratitude list. And I did see something, typically I didn't save it, but I did see something that was some study that was done about writing things out by hand as opposed to typing them out, and something to do with the way that writing things with a pen engages both sides of your brain, or like engages a different part of your brain than just typing does. And like we do plenty of typing anyway. If you're typing on your phone, you know, like answering text or whatever, that's typing already. So actually getting a pen and paper and writing can be really beneficial in ways that we aren't even aware of, which I guess is the point of a lot of the stuff I'm saying. On the surface there may be benefits that we know about, benefits of listening to music or eating well or movement, like we know those benefits, but there can be things underneath to do with the way our brain processes things, or the way our mind works, or you know, like the gut brain connection to do with food. Like there's things that we aren't even aware of, that all of these habits are going to be helping us and like prioritizing our mental health in this season where it is very easy for things to slip away very quickly. At least I've found. I'm trying to stay on top of things and trying to be present, and in those difficult moments just to be like, I just need to be here now, you know? I don't have to think about like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next week, or like how am I going to get through this, or whatever. It's like one day at a time, or if that's too much, one moment at a time. Like it's okay. And whatever I'm feeling, it's okay. I need to find the quote, but in Dr. Nicole LePera's book, How to Do the Work, she talks about if you sit with a feeling and actually feel it, it will dissipate after like a minute and a half. Like the really intense emotional reaction of being really angry or really hurt, disappointed, betrayed, that really strong feeling which provokes, you may be aware of this, provokes a feeling to like run away or fight, like the fight or flight response. I find this especially when I'm getting angry, normally because it's triggering underlying fear, because anger is a masking emotion, and for me, fear is always underneath everything. If you just sit with that really intense, horrible feeling of like, I'm so angry or I want to run away, if you just sit with it, your body can't sustain that physiological response for more than a minute and a half. You just sitting and being like, as uncomfortable and horrible as it is for me to feel this, I'm just gonna feel it. It will eventually dissipate, and then you can be like, oh, okay, I'm still feeling, you'll still feel like on edge or angry or annoyed or frustrated about whatever and being like, I wish I could get them to see my point, or I wish that things were different, but you won't be so wrapped up in the feeling. Like, it feels horrible, and a minute and a half, you know, it's like, that's not a long time, but if you're feeling that really intense need to run away or feeling really angry or sad or hurt or whatever, it is a long time, but your feelings just need to be felt. Sometimes we do just need to be like, I'm sad and I'm gonna cry, and I am sad, you know? And that's okay. It doesn't have to be a big deal or like mean anything. It doesn't have to be like, oh no, now I'm gonna be on this spiral and feeling awful for the next few days. It's like, no, let's just deal with this moment now. How are we feeling now? We're feeling sad? Okay, we're resting. We're just sitting, we're feeling the sadness. We can write about it if we want, emotional release, we can cry, but we're not thinking about like, oh my gosh, what's this gonna mean? Because we know, like all the habits we've been through, those things can all help to build up our mental health, prioritize ourselves, prioritize our mental health in this difficult season. So we know that there's like a backbone of stuff, a routine of things that we can go to and be like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna dance, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna do some meal prep. Like, those things we know in the background, even in that moment of feeling sad, we know there are things that we can do to help ourselves. It is difficult. I'm truly sorry if you struggle at this time of year, or any time of year, but particularly this time of year, because then it feels like the weather is mirroring our emotional state, and I just do not enjoy that. So I am sorry, but you are not alone, and also we can get through it, and it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Everything changes, right? So even if you feel terrible now, things will change and you will at some point feel better, or maybe things will just change and you'll feel different. But be curious about that, you know? It's okay. God bless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.